class like?
Like, you do not need to go out every day.
College is really hard.
Just to get involved in class.
Hey guys, I'm Lilia. Welcome back to Let's Collegiate. I'm a junior in high school, and I'm also the co-founder of Let's Collegiate, where we visit over 2,000 colleges to bring you the best perspective and the best advice from so many interesting people. And the reason we started this podcast and the reason we started this mission in the first place was because when me and my mom landed in Washington, D.C. from Morocco, we wanted to have other people's perspectives and other people's advice from those who were already in the United States. And we really didn't find that. So we wanted to be the ones to create it because it's so important to have inspirations and it's so important to feel like you have a community, really. So that's the reason we started Let's College It. And today with Let's College It, we have both Brandon from our old episode, and he's an incoming senior at Vanderbilt. And we also have the amazing Ibrahim with us, who's incoming freshman at UNC Chapel Hill. So we kind of have, again, the best of both worlds. So we're so excited today to really talk to you, Ibrahim, and to have also your perspective, Brandon, as a senior. So with that being said, Brandon, you could go ahead with the two questions that you have.
Sure thing. So my first question is, aside from the actual process you use to like get from your high school stats to a submitted application, what tools, whether it be software or hardware, helped you maintain organization and efficiency while you applied to college?
Yeah, for sure. So for me, the application process, it was really all over the place. I kind of went crazy. I wouldn't, I'll talk about this in a second, but I don't recommend doing this like to anybody, but I ended up applying to like 21 colleges. So there was a lot of organization I had to do, with deadlines, how much money I was receiving from each school, where I was getting in, where I was getting rejected, like locations, the places I actually visited, stuff like that. So I ended up like, this is something I recommend that everybody does. All of my friends did this. My college counselors helped me through this. I made a spreadsheet, just a very, very basic spreadsheet that listed all the 21 colleges I was applying to, their deadlines, how much money would cost, what majors I was applying to, that kind of thing. And as I started getting accepted and rejected from everything, that helped me organize like what decisions I actually had to make as well. So I think just the basic spreadsheet or any kind of like notes to organize the deadlines through the application process really goes a long way.
All right, thank you for that. Yeah, I think spreadsheets are a great way to just get everything right in front of you, so you don't have to jump around your computer to find information, anything like that.
And the funny thing is that, Brandon, you also mentioned spreadsheets in your interview when we were talking about how do you budget during college. So I guess it's really like something that everybody can relate to.
For sure.
Yeah, Excel sheets it's perfect for pretty much anything like data related. So
yeah, for sure.
Second question, is there any specific industry that you're interested in pursuing once you get to college, whether it's related to your computer science major or not? This might include like consulting, tech, or investment banking, anything like that.
Yeah. So one thing I'm interested in gaining experience in, I wouldn't call it maybe an ultimate goal, but I would like to get some consulting experience, like in an internship before junior year, before senior year in college. I would love to have that experience because I would like to get an MBA as well. And obviously to get an MBA, having that internship experience in investment banking or consulting or tech is really, really helpful. But I would say like my ultimate goal in and out of college would be to be involved in venture capital and startups. I've always been really passionate about entrepreneurship, about having my own thing that I kind of build from the ground up with a co-founder or founders or stuff like that. And, creating something that I can call truly my own. And that's something that I kind of played around with a little bit in high school. And I would like to continue moving forward as well.
Wow, I love that. And it's also kind of, again, you guys are very similar in the way that in our last episode, Brandon also talked about his desires to kind of go through the whole consulting industry and also kind of make a startup, right, Brandon?
Right. Yeah. I'm like, in the same boat where I want to also have that internship experience in like the tech space, but then also want to, have my own baby that I raised from the ground up
Yeah,
and on my
exactly.
own. So
Yeah, exactly.
So with that all being said, Ibrahim, tell us, why did you choose UNC Chapel Hill? I mean, what aspect of it resonated with you?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll say like right off the bat, UNC Chapel Hill, like I said, I was applying to like 21 schools, right? So UNC Chapel Hill was one of those schools, but it was never a school that I ever considered like my first choice. It was never a school I kind of actually saw myself going to when I was applying. But then in the I guess summer before I started applying, my college counselor told me about a scholarship program called Morehead-Cain. And they told me about all the amazing opportunities that has, and I'll talk about that in a second. And um, I had a lot of big names on my list. Like I had, the Stanfords and the Harvards and whatever. But then when it came down to it and I saw, I ended up winning the scholarship and I saw the opportunities that that gave me. Um, Even though I didn't get into any of those other schools, I wouldn't have taken those other schools over UNC because of the scholarship program. And what that offers is one, like the full ride. So obviously, college is extremely expensive in a lot of different places. So that's a huge plus. But also, it really allows me to make the most out of my experience at UNC Chapel Hill. Like that has amazing research opportunities, being in the research triangle with Duke and NC State. So I get to take full opportunity of that. Even take some classes at Duke. Really get to connect with professors on a one-to-one level. Study abroad at UNC with Honors Carolina is huge, and the Morehead-Cain Scholarship would be paying for me to travel for 4 summers of study abroad, and even some semester study abroad in there as well. Um, and the Morehead-Cain and really allows me to connect with the UNC alumni network as well, which is really, really extensive, not only within the Morehead-Cain, but outside the Morehead-Cain as well. I've already been talking with professors about, the work they're doing with entrepreneurship and business on campus, and, current students about like the study abroad opportunities that they have. And just seeing all of that, it's truly incredible. And I think the Morehead-Cain is going to really allow me to make the most of that experience.
Wow, I mean, this is such a huge opportunity for you with the Morehead Cain Foundation. I mean, I'm sure you're going to get access to so many opportunities, and we're so excited to see you thrive and see what you're going to make out of it. And again, it must be so scary for you to have a completely kind of different ending that you expected in the college application process. I mean, you started off, as you said, thinking that not even really thinking of UNC Chapel Hill as really an option for you. And then now, like, that's your life. So that's such an amazing change that's about to happen. And another little fun fact about UNC is that it was actually voted the most beautiful campus in America. So you're definitely going to have lots of scenery there.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely saw that when I won the scholarship, they flew me out there for 3 days, and that's kind of like when I truly decided like I'm gonna be here regardless of whatever else happens. Like just being on campus and seeing, everybody outside. Like I got to talk to a lot of different students, seeing the campus, walking around campus for 3 days, along with all the other Morehead-Cain students. That really meant a lot, and that helped make my decision. So
I love that. And going back to the Morehead-Cain Foundation, how did you really gain access to it? I mean, give us a little bit of your insights on that scholarship and if there were any other students really in the position that you were in last summer, really going back to about to apply and really looking that you need a scholarship or that you just want one because you want to exploit and really enjoy your college experience to the fullest. So what would you say to them and how would you say that they can also gain access to a scholarship maybe as prestigious as the one that you earned?
yeah, so I'll just walk through the process first of like how it was a very long process. So it went like over the course of like 5 or 6 months. So I was first, you have to be in most schools, they nominate you for these kinds of scholarships. So for Morehead-Cain, my school had to nominate me. I know for other scholarship programs like the Robertson for Duke or the Jefferson for UVA, you can just apply to those. And I'll talk about those scholarship programs in a second. So I was nominated by my school for the Morehead-Cain. That's usually how they take their applicants. And then I filled out my application by October. They pick their semifinalists, which is like the top 20% in December. Then the top 200 become finalists, and then they pick 75 or 100 to win, and then around 75 accept. So that process took a long time, and the biggest part of that process, I'd say, for anybody wanting to be a part of these scholarship programs is the interviews and how you actually sell yourself is the most important part. So like, your test scores, your GPA, your extracurricular activities, that really gets you in the door. That's kind of the way it is for the entire college application process. But especially for these scholarship programs, like I had to interview, I think a total of like probably 7 or 8 times. So there was a lot of interviews I had to do, video interviews, in-person interviews, online interviews, that kind of thing. And the way I sold myself and the stories I told about myself and really, really trying to make myself interesting, and set myself apart from saying, oh, I had a robotics program and I did this. Like I actually built a story around what I did. And being able to do that on the spot in an interview for these scholarship programs is really important. And for all the people aspiring to be a part of these scholarship programs, I would definitely recommend it. Just now being in one, and hearing about all the opportunities it provides, even like over, I'm not saying this is like better than brand name schools, but even potentially over some of the brand name schools because of how it distinguishes you as soon as you set foot on campus with, the Robertson, Jefferson, Morehead-Cain, like it really sets you apart as soon as you set foot on campus and gives you access to a lot of different opportunities. So I would definitely recommend applying if possible.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. And something that really stood out to me that you said was that this scholarship kind of gives you a lot of network access to the alumni, which is so important. When we were visiting Duke, we actually met an alumni and they told us how alumni really make up the school. And if you can't really have access to them, you should kind of reconsider the reason you want to go to the school because access to the alumni and seeing what the students who have gone to the school have become is so important.
For sure. Yeah. And that's like one of the biggest things when they took us out there. That's one of the biggest things Morehead-Cain told us about the program is the alumni network. Right. So already, like, I haven't even gone to campus yet. Like, I'm still like an incoming freshman, right? I haven't even taken my first class yet. And I've already talked to like 5 or 6 alumni, professors on campus about their experiences with Morehead-Cain, how I can potentially, follow their path. I've talked to people who've gone to Stanford or Harvard for their MBA, which I'm also aspiring to do in some capacity. And being able to have that mentorship and that access to that alumni network, especially in a scholarship program like this, is extremely valuable. And that's something, I'm really grateful to have.
Yeah, and that's amazing. And you were also telling us about how when you first walked on campus and you were visiting the campus, you kind of felt so comforted by the school and how you just felt like it was the place for you, right? So kind of walk us through how you found out that it was UNC Chapel Hill, like that's the choice that you wanted to make.
Yeah. So I have always been uh I'd say I have a lot of different interests, right? So I wouldn't say like I'm solely a business person or solely a comp sci person or solely an academic person. I like soccer and golf. I enjoy weightlifting. I'm into a lot of different areas in academics like politics, philosophy, comp sci, business, all these different things. And above all that, what I can value the most above all that is like valuable connections with people. So when I was at Morehead-Cain, they call it the Discovery Weekend. That's when I visited for 3 days. Um, I remember I was in like my hotel room and I was up like till 5 a.m. just talking to all the different, scholars and alumni alongside me. And that was something like I'll never forget, like just connecting with those people on a really one-to-one basis, hearing about how excited they were about the program and really sharing the same energy that I had about the school, and about school in general. That really got me excited that I was going to be going to school with people like me. And hearing UNC's culture, like there were so many people I saw with double majors. I'm going to be having a double major in comp sci and business. They have a minor called a PPE, which is politics, philosophy, and economics in one minor. So hearing about those kinds of programs and really allowing to like build a well-rounded curriculum for me that envelops all of my interests, um, is something that I found really, really cool, and relatively unique to UNC. And that's something that I was really excited about.
My gosh, that's so amazing. And I love how you felt just so again comforted and also like excited about this new adventure that you're about to go on. And so tell us, how did you even tackle this process that is so scary of the college application process? I mean, with the nerves of like scholarship or even getting in and just the whole thing in general, how was it for you?
Yeah, so I mean, it was extremely nerve-wracking, as I'm sure it is for everybody at the start. Like I said, I was at the start, I was really aspiring for, you know, Stanford was my dream school, right? That was my like number one choice, and obviously that's a hard school to get into for anybody. And ultimately, I was really extremely nervous throughout the entire process for the decision day. But what I kind of ended up telling myself is that, one, you only need one acceptance, right? You only need one acceptance because you're only going to one college at the end of the day. And I kind of just told myself that, once you get your application in through the door, then it's not up to you anymore. So I spent as much time as I possibly could. I submitted almost all of my applications like on the last day they were due, just perfecting all the essays. But then once I submitted it, once I did my interview, then it was just kind of like hands off, right? Like it's not up to me anymore. And in the light of rejections, like I was rejected from a lot. Out of the 21 schools I applied to, I was rejected from 15
Wow.
schools. So it was a lot. It took a toll on me, but the way the process is nowadays, with as everybody knows, like with them, every school receiving like tens of thousands of applications, it's not at all a fair process. And it's not a process that is, something that you can look at and say, oh, I didn't deserve to get in, right? I mean, there are thousands of applicants who deserve to get in and simply don't because they don't have the space. So that's kind of just what I told myself in the light of rejections. And I think that just made me feel better about the whole thing.
That's actually something that I think I'm going to take with me because I love that. And again, I think something that you said was that you only need one school. And I love that because I think that you only need one person to believe in you. You only need one college to believe in your capabilities and what you can accomplish in the future. And that's kind of the message that you were telling yourself, right?
Yeah.
I love that. That's amazing. And I was going to ask you, what is one story or something that really shaped you in high school that you think not only made up for your acceptance at UNC Chapel Hill, but also who you are today?
Yeah. So my biggest experience in high school that kind of contributed to my college application process, and I actually wrote my personal statement about this as well, was my experience with robotics. So I joined robotics in seventh grade. This is kind of what brought me into computer science. Um, I joined robotics in seventh grade. I had no idea how to code. I didn't even know how to like tighten a screw. I knew absolutely nothing. And we worked our way up from the ground up from zero. And really what allowed us to do that was mentors within the program. So there was one mentor in specific. He's a good friend of mine who now goes to Stanford. Um, and it was his expertise, being 3 years senior to us, that really allowed us to develop the knowledge we needed to excel in the program. And then once we, got to that junior senior level in high school, then we had that same mentorship experience to people below us. So my fellow teammate coder of mine in the program, we founded an like actual semester-long class for middle school people and underclassmen who are new members in the program, to teach them robotics programming. So we did that for like a full semester. We're now making a website to house all the videos for robotics programming tutorials. So that kind of like mentorship experience, one, really taught me that I have a passion for teaching as well. So definitely being a teaching assistant in college is something I'll look into. But also just, taught me how important community was and how important mentorship was in any kind of program. And I think that's a big thing that contributed to my essays that got me into UNC and other schools as well.
I'm
Just
gonna be very honest with you. I have never heard somebody make robotics sound so interesting before. I'm truly like excited to hear more about robotics now. And that's something that is very weird for me because I've never really been a science person or a robotics person. So the way you kind of said that was really fascinating. But
Real real
how
quick,
did uh
sorry, real quick. I wanted to say like a lot of the stories you're telling right now are stories that I also told because
Yeah.
I did pretty much the same thing in high school. Like I also did like the whole robotics thing, and then
Yeah.
like I was in the same boat where I didn't know a single thing about anything engineering related, like as well. I didn't know how to like tighten a screw or anything like that. And then eventually, that teamwork aspect and the mentorship also all came in. And those were things that I also said like in my college applications. So I can relate on all of that stuff.
Yeah. That's really cool. I mean,
I love how we were able to have such similar people. That's truly a coincidence, but I mean, nothing really is ever a coincidence. So it's so great to have both of you. I mean, that's so amazing to kind of hear that you can start from a point where you don't know anything. It's possible. And robotics, that's such a big part of both of your lives, started at a point where you didn't know anything. And multiple people don't really see that as something that's possible. They say that, oh, it's too late, or oh, I just don't know how to do it. Like somebody else can do it better than me. And it's amazing how you both dedicated yourself to it. And now you wrote your entire college essay about it. And you're like the person who you are was shaped because of this new experience that you started in robotics.
yeah.
That's amazing to see. And I mean, how was juggling robotics, your academics, and your personal life? I'm sure, like, to really, like, in this application process, not only during, but also after.
Yeah, so very hard. It was extremely difficult. Um, so I mean, the first thing I'll say, obviously, so don't apply to 21 schools. I mean, that was a terrible mistake. Like I said, you only need one. And what happened to me, is I like after I finished like around, and again, like this is keeping in mind that each of these schools had like two, three, or even like five supplemental essays, so it was a lot. So once I had finished like around 13 or 14 applications, then the rest of them, like I just did not, feel like writing at all. And I just, that the quality of those applications wasn't well. But going back to the question of like balancing everything, one, don't apply to as many schools. I'd say like 8 to 12 is a good range. And the way that I kind of balanced it is like you have to, have some give and takes. So in the application season, when I was applying to all these schools, I kind of told myself, okay, like I'm gonna have to take a step back from robotics for a second. So I didn't like completely leave the program, but my coder friend and I, who we were both applying to college at the same time, we decided, okay, instead of dedicating like the 12 to 14 hours a week we were dedicating for robotics, we're gonna dedicate, say, 6 hours a week, and do a programming class for middle schoolers. And that's what we did. And that was just as valuable as what we would have gotten out of, say, competing for another year, which we had already done for like 4 or 5 years. So, and then obviously, like, what I ended up doing, I would keep one day, actually 2 days. I keep Friday night and Saturday night completely open, for my friends and my family, every single week. So I would not do any work Friday night or Saturday night, and then I kind of just leave it for Sunday or Saturday during the day, because I needed that break. So that's kind of how I balanced everything. And I kept my sports like soccer, or I play golf, and I lift weights with my friends. So keeping all that stuff in place really gives you a good break as well.
I mean, I love the way you're very organized, and I think that's something that is very valuable. Organization, again, also going back to the sheets that you were talking about, how you were planning out all the colleges that you were getting into or not, or like the application dates and all those different things. I think it's so important to be organized, and it's really like your experience really reflects that. And showing how like you were able to separate like time with your family and time with your friends and the college time. So it's really impressive, and I think it's something that everyone should really consider putting into their lives. And again, about the application process, other than I think you mentioned 15 rejections, what really like kind of what kind of challenge did you face during the college application time, other than like maybe the lack of motivation that you felt after getting rejected? Because I'm sure that that definitely takes a toll on you, whether really it's really you wanted to get into those 15 colleges or not. I'm sure it does take a toll.
Yeah. For sure. So the biggest challenge I had, and I've already said this, like when so staying motivated through the whole process is very hard. And one mistake that I really made was the colleges I cared the most about. Like I don't know why I did this, but Stanford was like one of the last applications I ended up filling out. And that was like my dream school, right? So I got to a point where I was like so burnt out from the whole process that I couldn't put forward like my full energy into the application. Obviously, I'm not saying like I, did whatever and just submitted it. Like I obviously still put as much as I possibly could into it. But one thing I definitely recommend is as much as possible, because I know the deadlines are kind of weird with some schools, but definitely like put forth the colleges you want to put forth, like that you care about the most, apply to those early and do those applications first. That's a mistake that I made, and that was a challenge for me later on when I was applying to schools like Stanford or Harvard or Princeton or whatever, and I was just burnt out from the whole process. And I'd say another challenge, I wouldn't call it a challenge per se, but a challenge that I saw my friends experiencing is don't limit yourself in the process. If you like a school like if you like a school like Stanford or Vanderbilt or whatever it is, apply. Like I'm not saying again, like don't have a crazy long list, but definitely don't sell yourself short because putting your shot out there, is all that matters at the end of the day. And I think there's definitely I had some friends that kind of limited themselves in the process. And that's something that I caution against for those going through that process now.
That's yeah, that is very true, and I love that. And going back to kind of, I know that you said that you applied to very competitive colleges, including UNC Chapel Hill being one of the most competitive ones. What kind of words do you have of encouragement for juniors that are about to apply, including me, and that are feeling this really competitive edge going through and having all these anxious feelings now that you're kind of done with the aftermath of the college process?
Yeah. The biggest thing I'll say, and I know it's kind of hard to believe going into it. Like I know I didn't believe it going into it, but no matter what happens, like it all works out in the end. Like again, UNC was not my first choice by any means. But then once I visited UNC, once I, got the scholarship, and it's not just a scholarship, it's more of a program, right? Like I got into one of these fantastic programs, and seeing people on campus and meeting people on campus, like I knew the school was right for me. Um, so I'll say like most of the time, 99% of the time, it's not going to work out exactly how you envision it. If it does, that's great. Like that's amazing. But most of the time it doesn't. And that's okay because what happens is likely meant to happen and it's going to be good for you in the end. So like I said, you only need one acceptance, and just have the belief going into it that it'll all work out in the end. And if you have that belief, then I think the process is ultimately very rewarding, once you see where you get into and where you end up going.
Yes. And I also wanted to talk to you about passions. I mean, I know that you mentioned robotics being one of the biggest ones and that it was kind of like the star of most of your applications. But how did you really showcase that when you were doing your interviews? You said that you mentioned stories about like how the mentor had such a severe impact on you and how it really made you feel that you could accomplish so much of the things that you did in robotics. But how did you showcase that? Like, what did you do?
Yeah. So I'll say like obviously robotics is not the only thing that I did, but what I had across my application was like a common theme. And that theme was mentorship, right? I was a part of a lot of different organizations. So I'm sure both of you may be familiar with DECA. So I was this past year the vice president of finance and fundraising for DECA in my school. And I helped lead training sessions for underclassmen about finance. So I was like in the finance cluster group. So I led training sessions on finance. And another club, the CS club, there's this competition called the American Computer Science League, where I led training sessions on competitions in the American Computer Science League. Then I was also a part of a club called Contemporary Legal Issues and Politics, where I helped lead discussion and debate around politics. So I had a theme of like mentorship that, I highlighted in robotics, but I had that common theme throughout all the other organizations. And then I kind of related that and said, hey, like I want to continue this mentorship in college, right? Like I want to be a teaching assistant in this organization, or I want to start this club where I can help mentor whatever. Um, so I highlighted robotics like with mentorship as that was like the keystone of my application, but I had that theme of mentorship really throughout the rest of my application. I think I highlighted that in my interview when I talked about all of the different activities I was involved with.
Right, I love that. And speaking of mentorship, I mean, obviously, it's one of the most important things that you can have in life, which is why we're even doing this program and Let's College It in the first place, because we want to provide a mentor for everyone and inspiration for everyone. But how do you think that really guidance from a mentor helped you? And how are you? I mean, you just told us how you're passing it along by being a mentor to others, but also like what effect do you think it has?
Yeah, so I'll go back to the robotics example. So there's obviously good mentors and bad mentors, right? So, you'll have people who won't really care about you as much, or will tell you whatever, and then like won't really help you, won't see you through it, like through the end. But I was fortunate enough to have really, really good mentors that had a really big impact on me. So going back to the robotics example, the guy senior to me who's going to Stanford, he like stuck with us through the whole process, and he showed us that he cared about the continued success of the program more than he cared about his own continued success. So it really gave me it impacted me a lot because it gave me the perspective of, okay, I'm not just caring about my own team success right now. I'm caring about the continued success of the program. Right. So that guy, we used to go to his house. He had a like robotics setup in his house. We'd go there over the summer like 3 or 4 times a week for like 5 or 6 hours a day. Um, and he got us to a point where like we were actually beating him in competition with the knowledge that he taught us, right? And then that same thing happened to us when we started teaching the middle schoolers. So that mentorship really impacted me in a way that I want to give it back now, right? So I care more about others, and not necessarily like not caring about my own success at all, but caring more about passing that on and making the program more successful than it possibly could have been. So I think that really impacted me and how I want to now give back to the world as well.
And what do you say to those trying to find a mentor right now?
Mhm. Yeah, it's definitely hard. What I will say is, uh, the easiest thing you can do is reach out and ask, right? So, right now I'm reaching out to a lot of different alumni, like for UNC, right? I'm reaching out to different alumni who shared my same passions and aspirations. Researchers in my same field looking for a mentor. So, reach out to people who have your same passions and aspirations and ask for their advice, and then hopefully you get a mentor out of it. That's how I got my robotics mentor. That's how I'm looking for UNC mentors. And again, the least you can do is ask. And
Right.
yeah.
Right. It starts with your initiative. I love that. And last but not least, we wanted to ask you, how did you feel when you opened up the UNC Chapel Hill acceptance letter? I mean, kind of walk us through your day of the acceptance.
Yeah. So I was actually on a class trip when I opened it up. So I was really, really fortunate enough to go on a school trip to Amsterdam. So I was in Amsterdam when I opened the letter, and I was with all of my friends, and we were all, cheering and excited. Like that's how it is with that. Because obviously UNC is a very competitive school to get into. But I didn't really think much of it until 2 months later when I got my acceptance to the Morehead-Cain program. And that's when I realized, okay, that UNC is now really a school on my radar. And again, going back to like what I'd recommend for people, when you're looking at these schools, try and see how you can apply in a program that distinguishes you as soon as you set foot on campus. There's a lot of different scholarship programs, degree programs. So definitely look into that for those who are applying now.
And sorry, last question. You just said about distinguishing you. What do you think distinguished you during this, not only application process, but also like what do you think you can bring into UNC Chapel Hill that is different about you from everybody else?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in terms of like the application process, what distinguished me, and I think I touched a little bit on this, is I didn't just, list my accomplishments because I had my accomplishments and I had my scores and I had all of that. But I phrased it in a way that showed how I'm going to make an impact on the college campus, right? And obviously that's a very vague thing to say, but I showed how I cared more about just achieving something, and I actually cared about creating something that gives back. And I think that's going to be something that is different about me. When I get to UNC, I'm not just trying to do something to slap it on a resume, right? Like I'm actually doing something to make an impact, create something new, that can ultimately give back to those around me. And I think that's something I really highlighted in my college application.
Right. And that is something very different about you. I mean, just from this really, I think 20-minute conversation or 30-minute conversation that we've had, I can definitely tell that that is something that definitely distinguishes you, because the way that you talk about your accomplishments again is very different. It's not like, hey, I did this and this and this. It's very story like, and kind of what you did around it, which I really love. And from going around colleges and over 2,000 colleges that we're going to this summer, and the hundreds that we've been to already, that is something that we don't see in everyone. It's kind of more like, oh, I got a 1600 on my SAT, or oh, I was president of this, this, and this. So it's like it's really inspiring to see somebody who really wants to create something. So thank you for that, and you're definitely an inspiration not only to me, but I'm sure so many who are watching this podcast. So thank you so much for that, and thank you both for your time today. You are both very, very inspiring, and I'm so glad that I was also able to connect with people who are very similar in interest in the robotics aspect, and how you kind of both really went from not knowing anything to the knowledge that you have today, and really exploring so many of your different talents and things that you just enjoyed. So that was really amazing. And thank you guys again for taking your time and speaking here today. Thank you, Brandon, for coming back. And thank you, Ibrahim, for really coming on to this podcast and telling us all your insights. And so we're so excited to see what you have to create, because I'm sure that you're going to create so much in this college campus. So we're excited to see it all.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Yeah.